Live right now. Just a second. All right. Good afternoon, guys. How you doing? It's Kevin here with Ryan today. We'll talk about more about your stuff, and I'll leave it to the floor for Ryan.
Good afternoon, guys, or good morning or good evening, depending where you are in the world. I'd like to thank you guys for being part of the channel and taking the time to view this, because I know you've got better things to do during your time. And I know a lot of stuff we're doing is fundamentals, but we want to try and get those fundamentals underneath our belt. So as we start moving through to more and more advanced stuff, things become easier. So what we're going to do today is a very short lab. I want to show you how to create a file share and map it as a network drive on your local PC without creating a VM. So as long as you've got an Azure subscription, you'll be able to do this. And I'll also show you some little I gotchas so that you're aware of stuff. And of course, and then we'll upload something to that file share so that you can just see it working, and it will behave and look and feel exactly like a network drive. The reason I thought this would be good to show, because a lot of companies use this, it's a way of replacing your file servers. If you have your file server and you create your network share and you share it out to different people that get different network drives or map drives. So I think this is a really good lab. I mean, it might be entry level for some, but let's go ahead and create that. So the first thing you want to do is log into your Azure portal. And we want to go down to storage. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a storage group. So obviously the storage group needs to be a new storage group. So of course I can go ahead and find out where I want to put it in. I can create this VFD lab group, or I can go ahead and create a new group, and I could just call this one, say, file share lab, and click OK. And of course, you've got to give it a unique storage account. So I could call this, I don't know, AZ file share lab. You can call it whatever you want. And of course, by default, we can make this zone redundant. What that means is we could have this share in different zones. So for example, if East US went down, we could make sure that it would East US 2 or West US would kick in. So we could go ahead and use geo-redundant storage. I mean, that's going to make it expensive, but for a lab, untick that, and you can come down here and let's choose local redundant storage. We don't want to use geo-redundant because we don't want to replicate our storage over different geographic zones. So this again is a lab, and it will save you money. You don't want to have it in there and create this lab and pay for it. I mean, it's not going to cost a lot, but again, every little bit you can save is important. Then we want to go next. And of course, we'll accept the defaults, and then we want to go next for networking. Again, we'll accept the defaults, and then we go to data protection. And I just want to have a quick chat about this. I'm going to turn this data protection off, or this soft delete off. The reason I'm turning it off is because I want to delete this storage account when I'm finished. If you have soft delete enabled, you will not be able to delete your storage account. And you probably says, well, why would we want to do that? Well, because if someone deletes a file on your storage account, or say your mapped network drive, you want to be able to go and recover that file. That's why if you noticed when we said enable soft delete, you can see that it says retain data for 7 days. You can change that to 20 days, 30 days, and you can recover your data. So if you're trying to delete a storage account, or trying to delete a key vault, you will find that soft deletes sometimes are enabled by default. So you'd have to actually go in and remove that soft delete. If you don't, then by default, after 7 days, it will delete itself, or 14 days, depending on the time frame. So I want to delete the storage account. I'm not going to keep it there. Another thing I want you guys to be aware of is you have versioning here where you can keep track of your data. Here's a little I gotcha. If you turn that off, you can't turn it off. If you turn it on, you cannot turn it off. And remember, versioning will create multiple copies of the same thing. 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and before you know it, you're running out of storage space. So versioning is there for a reason. You know, security may need it there for certain things. So it's something to keep in mind at the end of the day when you're turning on stuff. Think, guys, think for 2 minutes. Do I need this? What is the repercussions of having this on? So again, we're not going to worry about tags. I'm going to create another session with Kevin later on, and we'll go through tags and setting up tags correctly. I'm going to click review and create. This is going to go away and do that validation for us. And now this validation has passed. We're going to click create. And once this is created now, we can then go into that storage account and create our file share. And it won't take too long to create. Normally it's pretty quick in creating it. And then again, there is another little I gotcha that I'll show you as we go through. But like I say, at the end of the day, just remember, no matter what you're creating in Azure, what resource you're working with, just think about when you're creating something, the repercussions by turning stuff on and off, deleting or modifying stuff can have an effect. So as you can see, that storage was completed. So I'm just going to go ahead and just close this little notification bell down here and click go to resource. Now I'm in my resource of my file share, and we can go through here and we can do a whole lot of things. This is a nice thing with Microsoft. Let me just show you. If we go to Storage Explorer and you click on there, you can download Storage Explorer and put it on your machine. Or even better, we can come down and we can see we have Storage Explorer here in preview mode, which is amazing. So this is really good that Microsoft have done this. So this is just great. So we can click on our container here and we can come ahead and we can say, let's create a blob container. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to call this one file. Sorry, you can't have lower, so we say, so we'll go be lowercase, guys. So we say file share. And of course, if you notice when we click on the, if I can spell, I can't spell today. Help me, man.
Yeah, I need more coffee.
I need more coffee. And of course, you can come down here and you can do a whole lot of stuff, and we can go ahead and create this blob, and this will create this blob in here. Again, if for some reason, if you guys have accidentally created your file share and you want to get access to it, and you've closed this down, you've gone ahead and you've closed stuff, or you've navigated away and you've gone, I've gone to 80 and you've gone, where do I go? Again, remember we created that storage account here. So we click on the storage account and we go back into your storage account over here, and it takes you straight back down here. And this is where we can go along, like you're saying, we can do a whole lot of bits and pieces. And if you notice here, this is important too, that you look at the different properties. And of course, we can come to our file share over here. And of course, we can say file share. And we can call this, I don't know, let's call this test. And now we can give it a quota. Now, this is not gigabytes in terms of, like you would know, 10 GB, 5 GB. If you wanted this to be 10 GB, you would type in 10. If you just typed in 1 and left it, it's going to make it 1 terabyte or whatever the case is. So these GBs are different. So I might say set that at, if I set that at 1 and we go and have a look at the maximum, you will be able to see what you can do in terms of setting it. So you can see here by setting it as the maximum, what that's going to do. So that's going to be quite big. So we don't want it that big. Obviously, we can leave it at transactional optimized or hot or cool, and we can go ahead and say create. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. So now that test has been created. I'm going to click on that test, and it's going to fire up shortly. And just give it a second. And I'm going to say connect. Now, once I can say connect, this is going to map it to D drive. And now you can connect using Azure Active Directory, but we're going to use the storage key that was provided for us. And here's the cool thing. You can connect using Linux or Mac OS at the top here. So if you were wanting to use Linux, you would click Linux, and there's the Linux command. And of course, there's the Mac command that we would need. So obviously, I'm using Windows. So I would select Windows. So what I would do is I would come down here, and I would copy that, and I would come into my local PC, and I'll open up PowerShell.
Ryan, I was gonna, not to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is this like think of it as a shared drive on Active Directory when you create a share folder?
Correct.
Almost similar.
It's very similar. Think of it as creating a shared folder and then pushing it out as a map drive to your users.
Got it. Okay.
So that's exactly what it is. And then I'll go ahead and I'll paste this command in here, and we'll just kind of wait. And now you kind of think, okay, I've pasted.
Do I don't see your screen though? The other screen.
Okay, let me just.
Yeah, I see the other screen.
Okay, so there we go. Don't know why it's done that. There we go. Can you see that?
There we go. I see it now. Yep.
Yeah. So what I've gone is I've actually gone and pasted that command into there. So now you'd kind of say, well, that's great. So I'm just going to share my screen again and just show you something. And I got you. So I'm going to go back into my other screen here and click share. And now if I opened up this thing here, you can see here underneath my computer, I've got, can you see my drives?
Yep, I see your drives.
I've got no network drive here. So I'm going to just scoot back over to this command here and say share. And you kind of think, well, I've run the PowerShell command. I can't see any network drive. The command's not working. It is. Just press enter. Why it does that, I have freaking no idea. Only Microsoft will know. In my opinion, when you run a PowerShell command and you put it in there, it should run it automatically. So as you can see now, it's gone ahead and it's mapped that network drive to that file share, and it's successful. So I'm going to switch back over to my main screen. Oh, sorry, to my computer. And I'm just going to show you, there's that network drive in Azure. Can you see that, guys?
I see it.
Yep. So now I can go in here and I can create a folder like I would normally do. And I could call this folder test. And I could go ahead and put in a document in that folder. And then we'll go back up onto Azure. I could open up here and I could right mouse click. I can say new. Let's just create a test document. And I'll just call this test 1, 2, 3. If I can, definitely need more coffee this morning, guys. It's still early here in New Zealand, so just bear with me.
It's okay. It's
I've got
okay.
an excuse.
It's all good.
So I've created that folder. So now I'm going to bounce back into Azure. And I'm going to go back into share my screen in Azure. And I'm just going to minimize this and minimize this. And I'm going to close this down because we don't need this. I'm going to do a refresh. And there's that folder that we created. Can you see?
Yeah, that was easy.
And
wow.
There's my thing. And I can do the same thing here. I can delete and upload stuff. So it's pretty easy to do. And like I said, it's really cool. So if you want to create some storage and give people access to that, you can. And of course, you can go down using IAM control and grant who has access to what. So you may have 10 folders in there, but you can say, right, finance can go to the finance folder, IT can go to the IT folder, sales can go to the sales folder, but nobody else can go to anybody else's folder. So it's pretty easy to do. Again, I could upload a file from here. I could click upload. I could select the upload here. And of course, I could go ahead and browse my local drive. For example, I could go to C drive. I could say, right, there's a picture there, click OK, and click upload. And this is now uploaded that PNG straight into there. And if I bounce back over to my network drive on my PC here, and as you can see, if I go into test, and there's that JPEG that we've just uploaded.
Awesome.
In there. And if I fire that JPEG up, obviously it's opened up in another page, but that JPEG has opened up. And if I said share, that's what that JPEG looks like. So I'm going to bounce back into the Azure portal, and we'll just do that right now and click OK. And I'll close this bad boy down. And again, here's my file. or my notepad file, I can double click on it here, and I could click, you can see the network drive where it's going to. I could click download, and this would download. And if I said open, this would open up that file. So I can preview that file as well there. So again, it's a very simple lab, very easy to do, just getting you familiar working with bits. If you didn't want that there, I could click on that and I could just say, goodbye, don't need you anymore. And
Ryan,
it's gone.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Someone
Yeah.
was asking a question to you. It's like, he says, can you do a full video on Azure fundamentals and what includes to pass the exam? Or do you know any website or anything to go over for Azure training?
I mean, absolutely. If you want to do some Azure training and you want to do some fundamentals, there is some good training. I've got some good resources, which I will share for you for free. You don't have to do anything. Just get hold of me, and I will send you some resources. If you are wanting to do some labs to prepare you for the exam, I'm quite happy to do one-on-one labs with you as well. I've done that for so many people and prepared them for the exam and help them. So I'm here to help, guys. So just reach out. And if you're quite happy or doing the labs yourself, that's fine. If you want some video material, reach out. I've got a lot of resources, like I say, and I'm really happy to share them. So yeah, just get hold of me on LinkedIn and I'll share those resources for you. Send your link and you can download them, and that'll help you. If you think you need some hands-on training, I've just finished training another person, another lady who failed her Azure exam 900 twice. She reached out to me on LinkedIn and I covered some hands-on labs around the curriculum, and she went and wrote her exam yesterday and she passed. She's just over the moon. And I mean, it's credit due to her because she worked really hard. But again, you know, she said, oh, the labs were really helpful in understanding the questions. And also just a heads up, guys, those that are doing Microsoft exams, Microsoft are now starting to incorporate live simulations into the exam. I'm not saying you will get them. Some people get them, some people don't. It just depends on the day. I mean, I had an Azure exam on my administrator's exam where I had to go and create some file shares and set up some security. And I logged into the Azure portal like this, and I actually had to complete a whole lot of steps to complete that lab. And I had 5 labs, excuse me, I had 5 labs in my exam that I had to do. That I know other guys who have done their exams and they've had no labs at all. It's just been multiple choice, drag and drop questions and hotspot questions. So again, you can never do too much to prepare for your exam. But again, going back to what I said earlier on, just reach out to me and I'll help you where I can. If you've got the time, I've got the time. I don't mind getting up at 1 o'clock in the morning, New Zealand time, to help you because, like I say, I've been in your boat as well. I know what it's like when you are trying to learn something and you're struggling to find resources or you're struggling to connect with the right people to help you. So I'm here to help, guys. So just reach out and if I can help, I will help. If I don't have resources, I can point you in the right direction. So at least you get the right material to help you with your exam.
Ryan, you're awesome, man. This was easy, actually. I think you wanted to show us something else. We'll go back to this.
I mean, this is pretty easy. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, you've all heard Windows 11. And I've managed to get a dev version of Windows 11. And I thought, well, can I upload it to Azure? Has it ever been done? And I'm proud to say that I've managed to do it. And I've managed to get Windows 11 to work in Azure. But you've got to create a custom image. So I just want to go over what an image is versus what a virtual machine is. We all know if you want to create a virtual machine, you go to virtual machine and you would click create and you'd follow those steps. I'm not going to create a virtual machine. And you would go through and you'd create a virtual machine. And as you can see there, that's me playing with my custom Windows 11 image. But then you would go and you would select from here and you would create your virtual machine, or you'd go to the marketplace and create a virtual machine. But there's no Windows 11 machine here. There's no, say for example, you might be using Linux Mint. There's no Linux Mint machine. And you might say, well, the virtual machine I want to create is not there. So what you need to do in order to create a custom image is you need to, first of all, create a storage account. Once you've created a storage account, you then need to upload your VM from Hyper-V. Now here's, again, I'm going to do a full lab on this. I just want to go over some stuff with you. So what you would do is I'm just going to fire up my, share my Hyper-V screen with you. So I'll just drag it over so that you guys can just see, and I'll just share it quickly so that you can see what I see. As you can see, there's my Hyper-V machine. There's my Windows machine. So what you do, you're going to Hyper-V and you'd create a virtual machine. Now to get a virtual image to work, you need to convert it to VHD. By default, Hyper-V makes it a VHDX. That's not going to work. You're going to have errors coming out the freaking wazoo, and you'll never get your image to work. So how do you convert a VHDX to a VHD? People say, well, you need to download this tool or you need to run this PowerShell command. You can, but as an entry-level person, the easiest way to do it is through Hyper-V itself. So what you would do is, as you can see, there's my virtual machine. You power it off, then you move over to your Hyper-V. And then we go into your edit disk settings. You click next, then you browse to where your Hyper-V image may be. So for my argument's sake, I've got it in here, and I'll click on here, and I've got a Hyper-V, and I'll click virtual disks, and there's my virtual disk there. So I would select my virtual disk, and I would click open, and I would go next. Click convert, and go next.
I don't see that screen. You get
okay. Let me
the other
just
screen.
see why it's doing that.
Just share it again.
Share it again. Right, let's go back.
There we go.
So once you go edit disk, this is what pops up. So you right mouse click, you say edit disk. This thing pops up. We go next. You browse to where your virtual machine is. So in my case, I've got it on D drive. As you can see, Windows, Hyper-V, Windows 10, Windows 11 Pro. Your might be something else. So I'm going to select my Windows 11 Pro image. It could be a Windows 10. It could be a Linux image. Whatever image it is, you've got to convert it to VHD. I would go next, and then I'd say convert. Now I would select VHD, and this will go ahead and convert that VHD for me. And I will go next, and don't leave it as dynamic, because that means the disk is going to grow as you add more stuff. Obviously, in a real world, you'd have to think about it, but for lab purposes, choose fixed. We don't want to upload a 20 terabyte drive. We want to upload a 10 gig drive. So our virtual machine may be 15 gigs. So I want to upload a 15 gig drive. So I can always extend that virtual machine in Azure. So I'm going to go, extend that drive, sorry. So you say fixed, and then of course you browse to where you want to keep that virtual machine. So I might do it again, go back into my D drive there. I'd come down to program data, Windows, Hyper-V, Windows Pro, and I would go into my virtual hard disks, and I'll just call this, say, WinVHD. Give it a name that you can think of, and I would go next and click finish. And that converts that VHDX drive to VHD. So once that VHD drive has been VHDX drive has been converted to VHD, we can go ahead then, create a file share and upload it into Azure. But now when we upload it into Azure, we don't upload it as a blob. All virtual machines use a page file. Remember that, guys. If you upload it as a blob, it's not going to work, because Azure won't recognize it, because all virtual machines in Azure work with the page file format. So you need to make sure when you're uploading it, you select page file. And I'll just show you that quickly here in Azure so that you have an understanding. So when people talk about creating a custom image, and custom images, you may have your own virtual desktop at work, or your company may have its own image with all the applications and everything on it. And now you want to actually push that server out, or that virtual desktop out to somebody in your company, you would create a custom image, and then you would then either migrate that image or import that image up. So there are many ways to do this. And you can do this with a server. If you wanted to migrate a single server into Azure, you could do this. This is so much easier. Or you could run the migration wizard and go through a whole lot of steps on doing that. And people would kind of say, well, why would I do this if the migration wizard is there? Well, the migration wizard is designed if you want to migrate 10 or 20 servers at the same time, then it's good to use that. But if you're wanting to push 1 or 2 servers up and just see if they work in Azure, make sure that your applications work before you go live, you're doing 2 things. You're testing, yep, it's all going to work. Let's push it out live. Then it's good. Or hang on, this is going to break. I don't need this. Or you may say, I know it's going to work, and I've only have a few servers, so I'm going to migrate those servers up into Azure. So you'll find now once your disk has been created, I'll just move back into my sharing screen again. Just go back into the Azure portal and just click share. So I'm back at my Azure screen. So what I'll do now, for example, once I've created my lab, I'll just quickly create another share just to show you, because I could then go into my file shares. And of course, I could go ahead and create a new share and set it up. So what I would do is I would create a new lab and then go into that lab. And of course, I would open up Storage Explorer and I would create a container. So I would come into there, I'd create a new container. I might call it, I don't know, VHD 111 or lowercase, sorry, my keyboard, VHD 111. And then of course, I could go ahead and click create. Once I've created that container, I could come into that container there and I could now say upload. Now here's the key. I would select that VHD image that I created. I would browse obviously to my virtual machine, to wherever that container would be. I mean, that VHD that I've created. I'm just doing it as an example. We can say, right, there's that VHD. I click open. You can see that VHD is there. Don't click upload straight away. Click advanced and come down and select page blob. You need to have page blob. Now, again, you can use an Active Directory account, or you could use account key over here. And I would just select upload. And that would go ahead now and upload that virtual machine. So once that virtual machine has uploaded, I can then now go into my VHD lab like I've got over here, and I can double check to make sure that my Windows 7 machine has uploaded, and I can say, right, that's great, that's uploaded. Of course, you can do a whole lot of things, and this recognizes that it's a virtual machine. Don't double click on that, because that's not going to do anything for you. You don't do things that way. We don't want to download it. So we want to import that virtual machine. So what you would do is go up to the top here and type images. So you would select images, then you would say create either over here or here, and I'd say create an image. And now I would select a resource group. So again, I'm not going to create a new resource group. I've got one there called VHD Lab. I'm going to call this machine, I'll just call it, say, 111 test. Now it's asking me, what type of machine have I uploaded? Is it a Windows machine? Is it a Linux machine? Did I use a generation 1 or generation 2 on VMware? So I've said generation 1. Now we get the option to browse for that image. So I can go ahead and click browse. And there's my VHD that I created. I could click on that. And there's my VHD. I could click on that. And then I could again click on my VHD there and say select. Now it's selected that image I've uploaded. So I'm going to give this account a name, a storage account. So we're going to say, right, let's just use, I don't know, standard SSD. Now we don't need to attach a disk because we have a disk. We've uploaded it to our environment. So I'm going to go next, not going to worry about tags, and I'm going to go review and create. And you're probably thinking, well, we've created our virtual machine. Not quite. We still got a few steps to create. And this is going to go ahead and submit that deployment. And once that deployment has submitted, it would appear over here. Then once it's appeared here, we can click create virtual machine, because what, in a sense, what we're doing is we're importing all of our stuff into our system. So we kind of sit here for a minute while this imports, and it doesn't take too long to import that virtual machine. And like I say, now we go to resources. Now you get the option to create a virtual machine. So now we go ahead and click create VM. Again, if you notice, it's filled out a whole lot of stuff for us automatically. So I'm going to give this VM a name. I'll just call this my keyboard, Windows 11 demo. Of course, you can see it selected my image there. I'm going to give it 2 CPUs, 8 gigs of RAM. I'm going to give it an account, and I'll just call this, I'll just make it lowercase. In fact, we'll say Azure user. I'll go ahead and give it a password. I'll say P. I'll type in my password again. I can make this lowercase. I'll just say easy user to keep things simple. Now I can go along. Obviously, I want RDP open, so I'm going to leave RDP open. I'm going to go and say select disk. I'm going to keep the standard disk that we have, SS Premium or standard, or whatever you want to change it to. So then I could go ahead and because we'll just use SSD so we get some better performance. And I'll go next for networking. Now, again, in networking, I'm going to accept the defaults. I'm going to go to management. I'm going to disable boot diagnostics because I'm not too worried about that. Again, I could say do automatic updates or turn those updates. Again, I could also import a virtual an image using site recovery. Again, that's another lab we will cover. I will go next. And of course, we could give it a tag, and I could say review, and I could go back and I know what I did. It would help if I typed in the password correctly.
Yeah, we'll get you more coffee after this.
Get more coffee. Then obviously I just go through and go next again, double check that nothing else has changed. Of course, by default, you can use just-in-time access, which we will cover, which will lock down those RDP ports, and then we'll be good to go. So now we can go ahead. It's going to run away. It's going to do a validation, and we're going to click create. And now what it's going to do now, that image that we created in Hyper-V, it's going to go ahead and upload that virtual machine for us. And bear in mind, if you notice that it looks different now. We've got this little purple icon here. So if you see a little purple icon here, think of it as someone created a custom VM, because when your deployment's in progress, it looks slightly different when you're creating your virtual machine. And as you can see, it's thinking about it, because what it's doing now is creating that network security group. It's creating that IP address, it's creating the VNet, and very shortly it will start creating the virtual machine. And once the virtual machine is created, you can then download the RDP client and we can connect. Now, just bear in mind, another little tip, guys, if you are creating a Windows custom VM, once you've got all your apps and everything on your Windows VM and you've created and you think, well, this is great, my VM's ready to be converted, before you convert it, sysprep your machine, run the sysprep command. If you don't know where sysprep is, it's always on Windows 10 and all versions of Windows, go to System, Windows, System 32, you'll see a folder called sysprep, double click on that sysprep and use the standard out-of-box experience or the UUBE, and obviously select shut down once the sysprep is run. You don't want to reboot the machine again, then bring your machine up, because what sysprep's going to do, it's going to clear out all of the other background noise, so that when it loads up to Azure, it loads up nice and clean, and it won't take too long for your image to upload. If you don't sysprep your image, you could have issues with Windows. I know with Linux, like I say, you don't need to do a sysprep on Linux. And if those that use Linux will probably be smiling when I say that, because they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But again, with you guys with Windows, like I say, do a sysprep, whether you want to bring up Windows 10 or Windows 7 or Server 2016, whatever the case is. Creating custom images are great. They can save you money, or you can go to the marketplace and buy an image. And so again, by just typing at the top of the marketplace and searching, you could go and search for a virtual machine that someone's created already, and you can pay them X amount of dollars every month to use their virtual machine. But it's nice if you learn how to create your own virtual machines and bring them into the system. I know it's not a proper lab. I will do a full in-depth lab with Kevin again from the ground up on to do this. But bear in mind, when you create a VHD image, depending on your network connection, it can take anywhere from 1 hour to 5 hours for your image to upload. It all depends on your internet connection. If you have a good internet connection, it won't take a long time to upload. And like I say, this normally takes a little bit of time deploying because it's a custom image and it's prepping a whole lot of things in the background. But once this is done, we can go ahead and actually log into that virtual machine like we would do on your standard VM. We could go to the virtual machines and click download the RDP client, and then RDP straight into this virtual machine. And like I say, the only drawback is when you're creating a custom image, again, from my point of view, is that depending on your internet connection, it can take its grandmother's time to upload. If, like say, where I am in New Zealand, at home, I don't have such a hot internet connection, so it is a little bit slow. Obviously, you guys would probably have a better connection, but that's giving you an idea and a walkthrough of how to create a custom virtual machine and how to import it and convert it. I mean, there's a lot of good YouTube articles out there with people that have done this. There's a Microsoft documentation, recommend you run a whole lot of PowerShell scripts to turn stuff off and on. I mean, I've imported the Windows 11 virtual image by just prepping the machine and doing it this way. Again, like I say, you could use Azure Migrate or Site Recovery Services to move virtual machines around or to deploy a virtual machine. But this is a nice, easy way to learn how to create a custom image, upload it using Storage Explorer, creating your storage group, and then of course going ahead and connecting. So storage groups are there for a lot of things. You can use them to do all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, as well as creating your map network drive, which is awesome. If I come back into here and of course go back into my desktop, and you can see there's my map drive, and you can see there's called AZ File Share Lab. So bear in mind that you can call that whatever you want to. I could call it production, but again, it uses the .file call windows. And for that chap that spoke about the AZ900 exam, believe it or not, this is everyone I've spoken to have come across some sort of question that talks about the .file call windows extension. And now you should be able to say with confidence that the file.core.windows.net extension is to do with Azure storage. So if you see that in the exam, the first thing that should pop into your mind is, okay, they're talking about Azure storage and that they must be talking about a file share. So that's how you create your standard file share. And yeah, this is my machine at home, but it's connecting to Azure. So you could create as many file shares as you want. And of course, you could then put permissions on those file shares so that people only access whatever resources they need to access. And like I say, this is going to take a bit of a while to deploy. So
I was
even
actually
doing
gonna ask you, Ryan, about what are your thoughts of on MDT? Since there's a couple of videos on that. It's very complicated to use. But
MDT is pretty easy to use if you know how. People like to make it complicated. I mean, MDT is Microsoft Desktop Deployment is has been around for a while. It's a great tool. I mean, I've created a custom image with MDT and burnt that image, turned it into an ISO, and then mounted that ISO to a USB. And I just plugged that USB into the computer and it's built it for you. But yes, MDT can be complicated if guys, I think people tend to make stuff complicated on purpose. You know, I'm not knocking it, but you know, you'll see someone deploying something and you go, holy crap, do I need to go through all this nonsense just to deploy a virtual machine? You gotta be kidding me. I'm not gonna be doing this. And so yeah, I mean, MDT, it's a good tool. You know, if you know how to use it. Microsoft have come to the party. They've made a lot of good improvements around MDT. In some cases, in previous organizations, I've actually built a MDT server. So if you need to deploy an image on the network, you just remote straight to the server and deploy the image and move on to the next machine. And there's a lot of cool deployment tools out there. Like I say, MDT is one of them. It's Microsoft's built-in solution. But then you have so many other ways of deploying virtual machines. You know, you can use Enable, you can use Ghost.
Ghost. Yeah.
There's so many different tools. I mean, Aomi push out a tool, especially for deploying images, that is a lot easier than MDT. So I think it just comes back to you as an engineer. What utilities do you have access to? What are you allowed to run on your network? And what is the quickest way to deploy an image and get an image up and running for a user? I mean, you may have a user who say, oh, my desktop PC's poked, or my notebook's poked. And you might say, okay, well, I need to rebuild that. But I don't have 3 hours to rebuild that machine. You need to build that machine and get it up and running in 20 minutes. You could then use MDT and rebuild that image. You could also use Veeam backup and recovery to deploy a gold image or a base image out for that user. There's so many ways to deploy images. It just depends on the environment and what tools you have. But yeah, MDT is a good tool if you know how to use it. If you don't, it can be a pain in the jack and it can be frustrating, and you can just eventually, you'll give up. I mean, I know, because I spend so much time in MDT and I'm thinking, you know, I've watched some YouTube videos and you go through them and you think, well, damn, he got it to work. I freaking can't get the damn thing to work. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. So you'll scrub the lab and you'll try again and it'll fail again, because people do stuff in the background to make it work. And you say, see there, the lab is working fine. And then you try it at home and you go, well, no, it's not working fine. So like I say, it just comes back to you at the end of the day. Again, a lot of people and a lot of organizations use MDT. MDT, you can customize MDT to have your company logo on it. So when you deploy an image, a wallpaper will pop up with your company's background. And then it will just say, deploy the image. It'll give the machine a generic name. And then you log on, and then all you have to do basically is change the machine name. The reason we do a sysprep, the reason we use all of these utilities as well, is to reset the SID, or the security identifier number with Windows. And the security identifier number tells you that, first of all, you can't have the same machine on the same network with the same IP address. Have you ever got the message when you're working on a network says IP conflict? You know, there's IP address.
I got that. Yeah.
It's because there's another machine with the same IP address. So DHCP and DNS are saying, well, this is not right. So changing the security identifier ID will clear that up, but also it will prevent you that, because if I create an image now of, say, Windows 11, and it's got this IP address and that IP address, and I just copy that image and I say, for example, using Aomi or any other backup and recovery software, and I deploy it, it's going to say this machine already exists because it's going to copy it with the same name and everything. And you're going to have all these problems. So running a sysprep cleans all of that up so that when the machine, when you install the machine and it picks up all the drivers and it picks up all the other bits, it then will assign it a new SID, and then you'll be good to go. So
I was going to say that I even seen where you deploy an image on a computer using Altiris. I don't know if you know anything about Altiris.
Yes, I know Altiris. Yep.
And Altiris is hung up, so you have to completely exit out of Altiris to rebuild that same computer, and they can't use the same name. If it uses the same name while you're imaging it, you have to actually go into Altiris, go into that machine, that desktop. You have to remove it from there 100%. Before you could re-image it again. Otherwise, it'll keep failing. It'll get stuck in the same spot where you're re-imaging it. So it's like stuck on drivers, and then it stops working. I seen that happen in my job, actually. I worked in
yes. I mean,
in a hedge fund.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's happened to me many times. So there's a lot of tools. Again, Microsoft have some free tools. Go to the Microsoft website and search sysinternals. Mm-hmm. Now, if you search for sysinternals, there's a nice little tool there called that allows you to reset your SIDs. So you can always run that tool. So you don't have to rebuild your image from scratch, because that's a pain in the jack. Mm-hmm. So there are many ways around it, because like I said, deploying images takes time, especially like you say, you create your image, you deploy it, and then halfway through it gets stuck. So now you're trying to troubleshoot it. So you're wasting more time. And the issue is when you're working in a big organization, like for example, when I was doing work for a big company who had in their one office was 2,500 people. So can you imagine the day-to-day IT issues that I was dealing with? It was just myself and another engineer. Mm-hmm. So getting machines deployed and updated is important, because like I say, tools for imaging machines can also be used to deploy software updates as well.
Yep.
Again, you may create an image, but you don't want to rebuild that image. You just want to update that image. So you can go ahead and just run an update and update that image with, I don't know, either the latest patches, or you might have an application that you want to remove, and you can remove it from that. In some cases, it might just pay to push out a fresh image. But you're right. If machines have the same IP address or the same name, when you try and deploy it, it says, well, this machine already exists and I'm not going to do anything until you fix me. So then you spend a whole lot of time trying to fix that. And then when you deploy it again, then it should go through. So again, when you're deploying machines, you know, you have the option whether you want to deploy a single machine or you might want to deploy multiple machines. And where you would deploy multiple images is, I work for a training center, and those PCs had to be re-imaged all the time. So I would re-image like 100, 200 PCs a night because we had different classes running with different labs and stuff. And I used Ghost, but again, there's a whole lot of other cool utilities out there that do that. And there are some free tools that are absolutely amazing. And then there are some tools that are absolutely not worth touching because they just give it, they worth.
All right, I was gonna say, you imagine us doing this a long time ago. You didn't have images.
Oh,
and then you had to manually, like I was on Windows XP, and I had to manually create a local account. I had to manually install Firefox. I had to manually install Google Chrome, and I was doing this for the Department of Education, right? And I'm doing this for the Department of Education. We have no imaging system at all in this environment, and I'm literally just downloading manual applications from a shared drive. You know, the shared drives, right? And then we have AOL. I don't know if you remember AOL, and AOL was extremely slow. And I'm over here deploying software and applications that way for each individual PC, because in that time we didn't have SSCM or Ivanti or MDT or any of these fancy apps, right? And then you would have to manually do it.
Correct. And I mean, and that you're absolutely right. I mean, I used to remember manually lining up machines and building them, getting 10 DVDs or 20 DVDs and building Windows that way. And you're right. And then, of course, Microsoft came out with System Center Management, which is complicated on its own. And when you start using System Center, you go, this is a nightmare to use, especially if you're learning it and you don't know correctly. And then again, you do like all good engineers do. When things go bumpy, I'll do a Google search. I'll try and find out, see what's going on here. And eventually you get your head around System Center Management. But it's one of those tools that is overcomplicated. And it can be frustrating to use because it's people just, like I say, some things are just too complicated. And at the end of the day, I've learned in my experience from IT, if you keep your system simple, it's easier to fix. I mean, you do have it complicated and you do have policies and stuff to lock stuff down, but you don't want, things are complicated as they are. You don't want to make them more complicated by throwing in new software that's not going to help. That's why whenever companies throw in software or engineers decide to deploy a new solution in the environment, it's always good to think about the pros and cons. I mean, yes, it's nice to throw SCCM and off you go and it can deploy and do your updates. But at the end of the day, someone's got to manage it and drive that piece of hardware or that piece of software, sorry. So you need to find someone with the right skills. I mean, before that, Microsoft used to have Update Manager, which you could download and deploy your Windows updates as well. That used to be part of Server 2008 and R2 and onwards. And that's what people would do to deploy their updates. Again, there's a lot of good third-party tools out there that a lot of companies use because, let's face it, some of the tools that Microsoft produce are complicated. And again, some of the tools that, or some of your solutions may require different needs. And therefore, getting a third-party vendor product will give you that flexibility to be able to manage deploy and update your network systems. So a lot of companies have come to the party in terms of adding all these add-ons to make your life easy. It just depends on what add-on you want. And obviously, it comes with a cost at the end of the day. So when you're deploying a solution, or you're pushing out Windows updates or patches, I always have the philosophy, have a little test machine aside, push that patch out to that test machine and see what it's going to affect. Because I've learned, and a lot of people I think have learned the hard way, just pushing out patches and updates is a bad thing because A, it could break Windows, B, it could break an application on your machine. And when I mean an application, maybe it's something to do with Office, or you might have your own special accounting application or a special piece of software that you use in your environment, and that update may break that piece of software. So can you imagine if you push it out to 50 people or 200 people and it breaks it, that's 200 machines you've got to go and fix. So, management might say, oh, I need this pushed out now and you need to get this deployed immediately. You say, well, I need to deploy it and test it first, because the repercussions of deploying it wrong or the repercussions of not testing stuff will come back and bite you in the butt. So again, it's coming back to a whole lot of things like earlier on when you're creating a file share, name your file shares, names that you understand. What is it that you're going to do on that file share? Who am I going to deploy that file share to? So there's a whole lot of things that come into play. If you create your file share, like I've just done here, and you find it's not working, by default, some firewalls and vendors block port 443. So go and see your firewall guys and say, hey, is 443 allowed through the port? Is it being blocked? Because if certain ports are being blocked, then when you try to run your file share, it might not work. But again, Microsoft have come to the party as well. They've really upped their game when it comes to Microsoft Azure and Windows 10. Windows 11, they've made some good strides there. It's an operating system you either like or hate. It looks a little bit, it looks a cross between Mac OS and Windows 10, but it still has the Windows 10 architecture.
I was about to ask you about the, yeah, I saw Windows 11. I'm like, this looks like a Mac machine. Why does it look like that? It looks like a dock.
Yes.
They have like the docker,
Yes.
the dock on like a Mac machine. I'm like, this looks so weird. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping it's just like a beta version, and it actually
Yes.
looks a lot. It looks a lot different from that. I don't want to. I don't mind it, but you know.
I mean, absolutely. You'll find when Microsoft do beta versions or developer versions, you'll find when they release the final version, there's always changes. And I think we're going to have some really nice changes that come with Windows 11. Again, they're talking about Windows 11 being free. If you've got Windows 10, you can upgrade to it for free.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to somebody, don't just go ahead and upgrade to Windows 11, because you may have certain applications that require certain drivers that don't play nice with Windows 11. Although Windows 11 is built on Windows 10 architecture, there will still be some minor differences that could cause strife. So again, I would say when Windows 11 is released on the 24th of June, that you play with it in a sandbox environment, get familiar with it, see if your apps run on it.
I was actually gonna say that. I was literally gonna say the same thing. Like I would, if you want to update to Windows 11, I recommend you put it on a VM and then use all the apps you're using on Windows 10. Put it on that VM with Windows 11 and see if it actually works. If it doesn't work, then don't upgrade. Just stay away from it for a little bit, for a couple of months.
I mean, I normally stay away from upgrading to a version of Windows for at least a year. Mm-hmm. The reason I do that is because I want to make sure that it's stable, because I've learned with experience going way back from Windows 2000, Windows ME, mm-hmm. Freaking Windows Vista. Let's not even talk about that.
Windows Vista. Oh boy.
Let's not even talk about Windows 8 or 8.1.
Oh, 8.1. We talked about that earlier today. Charms.
So yeah, so there's a lot of things that, and so who knows what Windows 11 is going to bring up? It might bring up some other frustration. But again, just having a look at the dev version that I have, Microsoft has done some really cool things. So they've listened to people where in the past, Microsoft would just go ahead and create something and deploy it, and there you go, that's it. And when users and engineers would be a little bit upset because certain features have changed and things are not there. So I have to give Microsoft credit here, saying they've listened to their suppliers, they've listened to their engineers, and they've listened to their users. So, and I can understand with all new versions of the operating system, you upgrade it, they make the changes for security, they make changes to adapt to the newer technologies in terms of hardware, different hardware will run and different things are coming out. If you think about hardware changes, I reckon in the next 5 years, the standard drives would be all solid state drives everywhere. You'd find it very hard, I think, to find a SATA or an IDE drive anymore.
I was going to interrupt you. I was like, is it Windows 10? Is it 2024 or 2023? When's it get up to? I don't remember.
2024.
2024, right?
Yeah. So I think it's so we've got another 4 years. Mm-hmm. I would think before Windows 10 stops support. But when they mean stop support, you could probably get paid support. Believe it or not, you can still get paid support for Windows 7.
7, yes, I see. Yeah.
Windows 7 is still around. A lot of companies, a lot of government organizations are still using Windows 7. Mm-hmm. And people kind of say, well, why don't people just upgrade to Windows 7? I mean, if you're a small company, upgrade to Windows 10. If you're a small company, you can. But if you're a government department that has hundreds of thousands of employees, that's hundreds of thousands of operating systems that need to be upgraded. A, it's expensive. B, it takes time to deploy those upgrades. And C, are those existing applications going to play on Windows 10?
Yeah, it's a compatibility issue.
So it's a compatibility issue. Mm-hmm. So there's some reasons why people don't upgrade. And people are very quick to point the finger and say, yeah, look at those guys that they didn't upgrade. It's their own fault, or they're way behind, we way ahead. but there are mitigating circumstances that prevent people from upgrading or moving to the newest operating system. You will not believe it. I've still come across people using, I came across the other day, someone using a Windows 98 PC. And I said, what? And this machine is being used in a production environment. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then, well, our application only runs on Windows 98. Well, get the developers to start writing code to update that application to run on Windows 10. Oh, well, it's worked fine like that, so we don't bother to change. I'm like, but it's connected to the internet. Yeah, because it needs to do stuff. I said, dude, it's open for vulnerabilities and stuff. You need to disconnect it from the internet and have it isolated so that people inside can use it. Then it's okay. But the moment you expose it to the internet, I said, you're asking for problems. And I said to them, you really do need to move forward. I said, because at the end of the day, your users are using Windows 10. So there's, or Windows 7 or Windows XP. So I said, things need to change. So a lot of companies slowly are upgrading. And I find it funny because those people that have just got to Windows 10 will have to now start looking at going to Windows 11 down the line. But
I was going to say that I seen people on server 2012 R2 and server 2008 as well. I seen that, and I seen Windows XP too, which scares me. I'm like, why are you using XP? And they're like, oh no, these apps are not compatible with 7 or 10. We need to, and then ask the software developers. No, we don't have time and money to do that. I'm like, come on, guys, get it together. Come on.
Absolutely. So that machine is deployed. So now let's say you created your resource account like we've got over here, and you want to go ahead and delete your resource group. It's pretty easy. All you would do is you would select your resource group here. And of course, I would move over to here. I'd highlight that if I wanted to, and you could, sorry, that's just a bad habit. You wouldn't highlight it. Let me just move this out the way. I'd come ahead, go here and delete. Now, just bear in mind, when you delete that, it's going to delete everything in that resource group. So as you can see here, I'm going to dismiss all of that. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that drive. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that name in that I highlighted, because it's telling me I need to paste that name in. And I'll go ahead and say delete. Now, bear in mind, read the warning. Once you delete stuff in a storage group, it's going to delete all your blobs, all your files, all your tables, and all your queues. So hence the soft deletes that we have had in place. And as you can see now, it's going ahead and deleting that resource, which is great because we no longer need that resource. So it will take a bit of time while it goes away and deletes that resource, because it's going to also delete this thing here, because that's running and we don't want that running. So I'm going to go ahead and kill it. And
yeah,
we'll make a
full video on Windows 11 at some point.
Yeah, we'll make a full video. I mean, so this is those resources are being deleted. So I can just go back into my resource group, and as you can see, it's deleted it pretty quick. But I've still got that lab, so obviously it's uploading that Windows, just converting that Windows 10 machine. And normally it's pretty quick, so I can come into here and we can see there it's still creating. Once that machine has created, I could go ahead and fire that machine up. So I'll just give it a little bit of time to finish creating, because it's obviously not done yet, because we still don't have other bits here. So I'll just leave that to create. But obviously once it's created, all I would do is I'd come down here, I'll download the RDP client, and then I would do this, and I would then say open up that RDP client, and then I would say connect, and then I would just type in AZ user, and then I'll type in that password, and then I would say connect. And obviously it's still connecting, so it's still deploying, so I won't be able to connect to it. So we'll have to just wait for that deployment to complete, because it's still creating. once it's finished creating, I can then deploy it. But the main goal of this lab today was just to give you guys some advice on how to create a mapped network drive using file storage, how to give you an overview of what a custom image is. And it is totally different from a virtual machine. So at least when people talk to you about it, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, well, I don't know about that. Another thing, what you can do is, let's say you go to your virtual machine and you've created it and someone's been chatting to you and you think, well, that's all great. And you come down and you think, I forgot my password. How the hell do I connect to that virtual machine? Just go all the way down. You can come down here. You can say reset password. And of course, you can go ahead and reset the password here. Obviously, because the virtual machine is still being created, we can't do it. And again, you can't reset a password while the virtual machine is off. Once the virtual machine is on, you won't see this error message, and you could click reset a password and you could type that password and you'll be good to go. So again, it's all about just playing in Azure, getting familiar with some of the stuff out there. Again, I can move over into my storage accounts. I can go up to my VHD lab, and you can see this is where my virtual machine is living that I've created. And of course, you can go into your containers again. Again, Storage Explorer, clicking here, download, gives you the option to download it to your local machine. Storage Explorer here gives you the option to explore this straight within the Windows console itself. So it's really awesome that you can do that. And of course, we can go through and do a whole lot of things within our Storage Explorer here. Another little tip I just want to show you, if I go into my virtual machines, right at the top here, and we click into that virtual machine. If I click size, I can go in and I can resize my virtual machine. So if someone asks you to resize a virtual machine, you can come down here and you can click the type of virtual machine you want. If you want a DS2 V3, you can say, right, that's going to give me 2 CPUs, 8 gigs of RAM, and it's going to give me 4 data disks. So you can kind of go down here and select that. Obviously, you'd select that machine, and then you would just say resize. Let's say you've deployed a virtual machine like we've done in our case, and the disk is small. We can click on disk. You could click on the virtual machine here. And once the virtual machine is fired up, we can scroll all the way down and we can go to size and performance. And I can obviously now click in there and change that to 25 gig or 50 gig and click resize. And that will resize that virtual machine for us. Again, we can lock it down. We can export that disk. We can do encryption. Of course, we can go ahead and tag that disk from within here. But there's a lot that we can do. So, but like I say, the main goal of today was just to get you familiar with creating your own file share and just going, giving you an overview of how do I create an image and what is a custom image? Because 9 times out of 10, people would kind of go to the marketplace. And this is, once you're in the marketplace, here, this is where you would go and you would decide, all right, I want a computer, you would select compute, and you could now go and purchase a virtual machine. You might say, well, I use Debian, I use SUSE Linux, I use Ubuntu. So you can go on, as you can see, there's loads of them. We haven't even scratched the surface. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. I mean, if you clicked see more here, this will, again, will open it up and you can see more on the different scale sets, Kubernetes. Here, an SQL 2017 running on 2016 server. You've got templates for custom deployed. So there's a lot of things that you can get, but just bear in mind when you go to the marketplace here, you're paying for stuff. And the same if you want to do a database, I can come down here and I can deploy a database like Synapse, Elastic Pooling, SQL, Redis. You may probably hear about Redis. So this is where they get all of these bits and pieces from. But bear in mind, every time you select something from here, you're going to pay for this. I mean, and you can see like here, this is free. And you can come down and just see what it is that you have. So it'll tell you if it's free or they'll tell you if you have to pay for it. So you'll see the nice little thing saying free, then you know that's free. Or hey, you might want Alberton Data Warehouse. That's going to cost you $200,000 a year.
Jesus.
So that's cheap compared to other stuff I've seen. Damn, other stuff I've seen is you're like, thank goodness I'm sitting down. So again, there's a lot of things that you can do. There's IT management tools on managing stuff. You know, so there's backup and recovery. There's a whole lot of things that you can do when you go through. So explore the marketplace. You don't have to buy anything. Again, you can explore bits and pieces. You've got stuff for migration. If you want to migrate, remember I was talking about migrating machine. What we did is we uploaded to Blob storage. So you can kind of go through. If you're searching for some stuff, you might say, let's say Veeam, and you could press enter. And there we've got Veeam backup and replication. If I click on Veeam backup and replication, I can now go and get the Veeam backup and replication for my virtual machine. And hey, there's a free version here. Fantastic. So I can use this in my Azure subscription and I don't have to pay for it. And you can use Veeam for Office. They do a free version which allows you to back up 10 365 accounts. And you can say, well, this is great. Now I can start learning how to use it. So there are some cool tools in this. And like I said, I've used Veeam since version 4 and we're on version 10.5 or version 11 now. But you can see this is going, this is great. And you can say, yeah, start with the preset configuration, and this will go ahead and do that for you as well. So you may have a certain tool that you're looking for, and you can just come in here and you could browse for that tool. If I went along and I said trend micro, like for antivirus. So if I said, okay, let's go have a look at trend micro for antivirus, I can go ahead and start downloading trend for my thing. But if you have a look here, it's spinning here, and this is giving me a price of what you're going to charge. So these are things that you need to be aware of before you start looking for stuff at the end of the day. So there's a lot of things that come into play. I mean, you've got Trend Cloud One for security. You can go ahead now and get this. This is not too bad. You've got worry-free services for $3 a month for an endpoint. Very good value for money. So it just depends on what you want to do. So a lot of the common tools that you use, if you don't see them in the marketplace, because the marketplace has thousands and thousands and thousands of tools, just type in the tool name here, and hopefully you can go to the marketplace and search for it. Or if you want to, you can just type in, like I say, just type in marketplace again, and you go to the marketplace and you've got all the categories over here, and you've got everything. You know, if you want to do media, you've got security. If I click on the security tab, there's a whole lot of, you know, you've got firewalls there, you've got Azure Security Center. So again, here's one, yeah, 125 grand, $51,000. So it depends on what it is you wanting to use and what it's going to cost. Here's a little tool that's free.
Oh, it's free.
So
Nice.
have a look. There's no harm in downloading a free tool. This gives you a free trial. The same if you come into storage. You can see we've got Azure Data Box. Now, what Azure Data Box is, I'll just touch on it briefly. Microsoft will send you a miniature server that you copy all your data to, like if you've got terabytes of data, and then you send that little miniature server back to Azure Microsoft, and then Microsoft will upload it for you. And bear in mind, there's a cost for that. But also bear in mind, if you damage the data box or the data box gets lost in transit or something, you're liable for a $40,000 fee to cover that data box. So there's a lot of things that you can do as you setting up bits and pieces. So just bear in mind, explore, have a look, go through and see what's out there. You've got FileZilla for FTP. I can go on and on and on. It's just a case of you exploring and not being afraid to explore your environment and get familiar with your
I was gonna say, if someone's brand new to IT, I suggest going ahead and try the free trial versions, the free ones, and then when you get comfortable with it, I would talk about it in a job interview. Add it to the resume, and then you could talk about it in a job interview. You could actually like create your own little lab with the marketplace, and then when you go to the job interview, you could say, "Oh yeah, I use VM and I use it to back up my lab on my lab on Azure," and you can start talking about that. So when you were in IT, we talked about this today too. Me and Ryan talked about this. So in IT, when you're very curious about something and you start talking about that technology that you worked on in the lab environment to a manager, their eyes start to flash like, oh, okay, this person really knows what they're talking about. This person is passionate about IT or wants to learn about IT. So I tell people, in order for you to learn, right? Get uncomfortable, get out of your comfort zone. So you need to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. So I suggest you go in and, just play around with certain things in the lab environment. If you do that, you could talk about it in a job interview. I don't know if Ryan wants to say anything, but
yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is the best way to get your hands dirty is play, and don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Again, I've made an error on the virtual machine, so I can just show you. So as you can see, I've got an error on my virtual machine. And if you go to the virtual machine, you kind of see this, and you get a nice little error, and this tells you why the virtual machine has failed. Please check the provisioning. And I've done this on purpose, generalized through the UUB. When we were setting up, we should have generalized that virtual machine. So I didn't generalize that virtual machine. So that's why we've got these errors. So again, it's looking at the errors, finding out where the errors are and how do we fix those errors. Again, if you're trying to start a virtual machine while it's being deployed, like I tried to log on. So this doesn't mean this virtual machine is faulty. It could be because I tried to RDP to it while the virtual machine was running. In other words, creating. So it still needs to create, and think about it. Again, my connection is slow. If you guys have got a really good connection, it won't take you long at all to create your virtual machine and to get you up and running. But like I say, if I come into here and I try to stop that virtual machine, and we'll see what happens, and then we'll try and restart it. Sometimes doing that can kind of fix stuff, but again, having a look here, it'll tell you that what happened here. Obviously, this is when I canceled that upload because I don't need 2 uploads. So I'm not too stressed about that upload, and that's absolutely fine. So I'm stopping that VM. Once that VM is stopped, I can then re-image it again. But the whole idea was to give you a basic overview of deploying, like I say, your custom image. What is an image? It's not the same as a virtual machine. And what is a file share, and some other pointers so that you kind of get your head around bits and pieces. And that pretty much does it. Again, if you wanted to delete that lab, it's pretty easy to go ahead and just navigate to your storage group. I can select my VHD lab here. And of course, I could come straight here and delete. And of course, when it's telling me, do you want to delete it? So I can just type in, yes, I want to delete that lab. And then I can click delete that storage account from there. And this will go away and clean up that storage account that I'm not paying for anything. And I can go ahead and clean up my environment. Again, I can come back to my VHD lab over here. And I could go ahead, select that VHD lab, because I still have some stuff in there. And I can say, right, I want to delete that bit. So I can say copy. I can say, let's delete, paste in the name, because I'm lazy, I don't want to type it in. And I could do the same with the file share lab as well. I could say I want to delete that resource group because I don't need it. So I can just say copy, delete that resource group by pasting it into there and clicking delete. Now, what I've done is I've cleaned up my lab environment. So I'm ready to do my next lab. And if this lab costs me 20 cents to do, it's a lot of money. So at the end of the day, always clean up behind you, especially if you're in your own lab. Obviously, in a production environment, you won't be creating and deleting stuff without your IT's permission. But I would let that go away and do its thing.
Yeah, we should be good.
And you should be good to go. So again, practice makes perfect. I will be doing some good training videos on creating a custom lab Windows image from the ground up to deployment, to actually logging into it on Azure, as well as a whole lot of other topics as we go. So again, touch base on my channel to check what's new, touch base with Kevin to see what's new. And again, guys, if any of you need any help or any resources or any advice, give me a shout. I'm not just Microsoft. I've worked with Citrix. I've worked with Cisco. I've worked with Cisco Meraki, Ubiquiti, Veeam, Linux. So, you know, I've got a lot of experience on a wide range of many vendor products. If I can share some knowledge to help you, I'll be most grateful. If I don't know, again, I can point you in the right direction and hopefully find someone that can help you. But again, like I say, I know a lot of things. I've covered a lot of different software. It may be something that's unique to your environment. Again, I'm also VMware certified. So if you're running VMware and you want to learn a bit about VMware, again, just touch base. I'm here to help where I can. But at the moment, like I say, I'm concentrating on Azure. So those guys that are wanting to get Azure certifications, definitely the AZ900 is the way to go. It's in high demand with companies, and having that Azure qualification, entry-level qualification, will just give you that extra foot in the door as opposed to not having it. Again, while we're talking about qualifications, some of the CompTIA qualifications are amazing. If you've got A+ or Network Plus or Server Plus, those are good qualifications to have. A lot of people tend to knock them, saying, oh, they're useless, don't do that. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. Most companies have on-site hardware. Users have notebooks and desktop PCs, screens, keyboards, mice. There's different rack servers, tower servers, switches, SANs, routers, wireless devices, all in your company's organization. Cabling. So having those CompTIA qualifications, in my opinion, add value. Some people will say it's a waste of money and a waste of time. Absolutely not. I'm not trying to promote CompTIA. I'm just saying it's good to have a good understanding of the hardware things. If you want to go down the network track and you want to learn about Cisco devices, it's nice to have a CCNA, but as an entry-level person, get your CCENT, which is the Cisco Entry Network Technicians Certification. That's really good. So if you get your CCENT and you get an A+ and you get an Azure qualification, you'll be pretty much well-rounded, because your first job you'll probably get will be on the help desk. Don't knock the help desk. The help desk is great because it does a lot of things. It teaches you people skills, which you need, number one. Number two, it teaches you patience. It teaches you how to work with the team. It teaches you to ask questions. But most importantly, it teaches you to expand your mind. Okay, I'm stuck. Who can I call for help? Teaches you to think as well. A lot of people say, well, I'll never work on the help desk. It's a waste of time. No, it's not. You know, it's a good place to start. And if someone says, oh, well, you're just on the help desk. Well, everybody started there. Someone says, well, I didn't start on the help desk. I went straight into here. Well, good for you. But in my opinion, like I say, learning help desk skills are important. I would say people skills are at least 60 to 70% of the skills you need to survive in IT. The rest are qualifications and experience. You can have 10 certifications and no hands-on experience, you're not going to get a job. So how do you get a job? Again, people say, well, you're overqualified. You know, playing in with Azure, having some fundamentals, getting your hands dirty. And like Kevin said, when you go for an interview, hey, I've played with Azure, I've gone into the marketplace, I've created virtual machines, I've created users in Active Directory, I've deleted users. I know what an image is versus a virtual machine. Think of an image as a customized image that you have on your PC. Think of it as an image that's not in the marketplace. Simple as that. It's not in the marketplace. It's something unique to your environment. So again, guys, thank you so much for your time. I know the lab's gone on a little bit, and I really enjoy spending time with you guys. I'm grateful and humbled that you take the time to tune in. And again, thank you so much. And if I can help, just reach out and I'll do what I can to help.
Yeah, Ryan. So I shared your LinkedIn profile in the chat. I'm gonna share it one more time. So if you guys want to reach out to Ryan, it's gonna be in the chat. Actually, unfortunately, I have to close it out because me and Ryan have another meeting with some other people. So I have to wrap it up. If you have any questions about like IT related questions, directly to Ryan, I just put the LinkedIn profile on the chat. If you just have generic generic questions about IT, I'm on Discord. So you could just ask people on Discord. We have over 2,000 plus people on Discord, not just me, that are a bunch of IT professionals, entry level, help desk, service desk, sysadmin, IT managers, a little bit of everything. So you could actually just come in on Discord and ask for help, and someone will help you. We don't we try to help people. So that's just how it is. And if you wanna stop by on Discord, come by on Discord. I'm gonna let you guys go. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll leave it to Ryan. Close it out. All right. What do you say? Anything?
Yeah. Thank you guys again. Like I say, practice, stick your head down, do what you need to do, have confidence. Again, thank you guys. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So cheers, guys.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's